Hi and welcome to a quick review. Today we're going to talk about Sony NEX-5N photo camera. It's a compact size, has no mirror, small as like that. That's all. That's a battery compartment sticks out. The rest of the camera is just right here. The rest is interchangeable lenses. So this lens is quite big. This is 18-200. In 35mm equivalent that would be 27-300. So big zoom lens for this camera. Not very fast. So aperture from 3.5 to 6.3 full open through the zoom range. On this camera I also have now accessory which is a bigger flash comparing to what comes standard. So this one is HVL F20S. I would definitely recommend that because you can actually adjust the reflector for the flash here and make it fire straight to the front or bounce from the ceiling, and this is very useful when you're making portraits indoors. I also have another accessory which is a microphone. So it goes into the same socket as a flash. So you remove a flash, you insert a microphone because in video mode you don't really need a flash. And this one produces quite a good quality, quite good separation for the stereo channels, and also that can be adjusted from 90° to 120° as a range for microphone, which is quite useful too. I also have two batteries, two additional Sony batteries for the camera, because with image stabilization, with thinner lens, and also the screen as big as this, AMOLED screen, it actually goes through the batteries quite quickly. So quite a nice camera. Sony released it as an update to the NEX-5 model, and I have review for NEX-5 on my channel. So a few words about this one. It's basically just a bit bigger sensor. So it's 16 megapixels versus 14 megapixels for NEX-5. It has much better video shooting capabilities. It's fully adjustable video shooting, I would say. So you can set your ISO to whatever you like, up to ISO 3200 in the video mode. You can also adjust the shutter speed and aperture at the same time in the full manual mode, which is great. The shutter speed is limited in the video mode to 1/4 of a second, which is too low anyway, because if you're shooting even 24p, which this camera allows, so full HD 24 frames per second, as in a movie, for example, in a movie theater, this is what you see, 24 frames per second, you don't really need shutter any lower than 1/25 of a second. Now, this camera also allows to shoot in 60p, so full HD 60 frames per second progressive, and also 60i interlaced 60 frames per second. And also adding to that, the manual focus control in the video shooting mode allows you to shoot almost like on a professional video camera. Also, the video bandwidth is quite good on this camera, so in a 60p mode you can shoot in 28 megabits bandwidth, and for 24p, 24 frames per second, you can shoot in 24 megabits bandwidth, which is really good. In NEX-5, the bandwidth was limited to 17 megabits per second, and also shooting mode was just 60i, that's it. So regarding the image quality for the photos, so this camera has a bit bigger sensor, as I said already, 16 megapixels, but the difference in size of the pictures is not that great. Now, if you downsize, and this is what I do, I shoot everything in RAW format, and when I downsize to 6 megapixels, you get quite a nice sharpness, and you can utilize ISO range up to 1600 without providing too much noise to the picture. So it's still very useful from ISO 100, which is lowest for this 5N, and all the way to ISO 1600 with reasonably good quality. Now, this camera allows to go up to ISO 25600. This is very high ISO setting, but the image quality at that is not very good. So I wouldn't recommend to shoot anything above 1600 because of the noise you're gonna get on your picture. So comparing to NEX-5, the lowest setting it had was 200, so this one is 100. The highest setting for the NEX-5 was 12,000 something. This one is 25,600. So Sony increased the range generically, but usable range is pretty much the same, so 100 or 200 to 1,600. So in terms of image quality, little improvement, but not too much. Again, that's for the RAW format. If you shoot in JPEG, this camera will provide you much better results than NEX-5. So whatever Sony did to the processing of an image within a camera, this NEX-5N provides much better JPEG output comparing to NEX-5, and that is true for both noise suppression in JPEG and also with detail level it provides in JPEG. So for NEX-5N and also NEX-5, you can get some more accessories comparing to what I showed you already. So one of them is electronic viewfinder, and they do support optical viewfinders as well. The batteries on NEX-5N and NEX-5 are exactly the same, so if you upgrade and you have some extra batteries and you plan to sell NEX-5, you can keep your batteries, they will all work fine. Also for NEX-5N, the screen is actually touch screen as on a cell phone, for example, like Android phone. So you can choose your tracking point for the focus just by pressing on the screen on where you like. And as well, that's true for selecting the focusing point if you use E-mount lenses and the contrast-based autofocusing as comes with a camera. So both of these lenses, they do have the image stabilization built in, and this is quite a good thing, allowing you to shoot at slower shutter without creating motion blur on static objects, just because your arms are shaking. Battery consumption I found pretty much the same for both cameras. For the given lenses, so I use 3 batteries. I always carry 3 batteries with me all the time. It's very well built. Even lenses themselves, they're all metal, they feel very solid. E-mount lenses, they do have very quiet autofocus, so when you shoot video you don't have any additional noises from the lens focusing. For this camera you can use the standard E-mount lenses most of the time when you're shooting landscapes and portraits very well, but if you want to go into the sports photography, then you probably want to use adapter for the alpha mount lenses Sony just released, and that is LAEA2, I think this is how it's called. So that adapter has a semi-transparent mirror built in, so that allows you to utilize the phase detect based autofocus. NEX-5N, it has a built-in adjustment for the lenses. So when you buy alpha mount lenses with that adapter, you can actually adjust the focus to be very precise and focus exactly where it's needed. The lens range for the E-mount is quite limited still. So these 2 lenses I have, one is a kit lens which comes with a camera most of the time, and this bigger one with a higher zoom which I bought separately. These 2 lenses where also there is a 16mm 2.8 aperture fixed lens as well, and also some hours just came out. I think there is a 30mm lens available, but it's still, the range is not as wide as for the alpha lenses, not as fast lenses. Like for example, this lens, it's 3.5 to 6.3, so it's quite slow. And again, if you want to zoom high and shoot sports, you need to use much higher ISO, and this is not always available, not always good because of the lighting conditions around. So with alpha mount lenses, you can get very fast lenses with aperture 2.8, and even below that for 50mm, let's say, lenses and 85mm lenses. So that's an advantage. But again, if you just want to travel and take this camera on some basic trips with you, then you can use it with small lenses and it will fit into a very small bag, weight almost nothing comparing to the digital SLR, which is much bigger. But this is a camera which you can actually build according to your requirements. Of course, you cannot totally replace digital SLR because you cannot still get as powerful flash for this camera as you can get for the digital SLR, but it's getting there. And some of the capabilities of this camera is not comparable to the digital SLR at all, even though the image quality is comparable. And again, you cannot just replace the digital SLR with this, and if you use it for professional use, but for generic like shooting, this is quite alright replacement, I think. Talking about the image quality generically for this camera, the image sensor, I think it scored 77 on the DxOMark, which is very high score. With a good lenses, the image quality will be very good. ISO range is good, the noise level is not so high, it's very reasonable. And looking at the size of the camera, so in a compact format, this is pretty much the best you can get. Sony also talked about releasing the Model 7, NEX-7, but that is still not available, and that will be much higher price comparing to NEX-5. That's pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and see you!